Badlands. The very name evokes a sense of dread and wonderment. The term Badlands in general refers to any region of barren, exposed, rocky canyons and spires that are hazardous to travel or a bad place to lose a cow. But the Big Badlands refer to a specific region in southwestern South Dakota that is now part of Badlands National Park. In the early 1840s, the U.S. government sent out numerous expeditions to survey the country west of the Mississippi, including the Warren Survey, the Wheeler Survey, and especially the Hayden Survey. Almost all the fossils that these explorers recovered and dropped in their saddlebags were fragmentary skulls and jaws, which were sent to the famous Philadelphia doctor and scientist Joseph Leidy for study. Leidy is considered the founder of vertebrate paleontology in the United States, and at that time the only one with the anatomical training necessary to identify fossils and describe them. Serving as an army surgeon during the Civil War, after the war Leidy taught anatomy at the University of Pennsylvania. Nicknamed the last man who knew everything, Leidy was a pioneer not only in paleontology, but also in parasitology, microscopy, embryology, nematology, and even in forensic science. The most common Badlands fossils sent to Leidy were the skulls and jaws of a curious beast that Leidy called oreodonts. Leidy wasn't sure what they were related to. They had the characteristic crescent-shaped crests on their cheek teeth, typical of most of the ruminating hoof mammals, but they are far more primitive and couldn't be assigned to any living group. Leidy had many fossils of these strange animals. Later collectors found them to be so common in the Badlands that one layer is called the turtle oreodont beds, after the two most common fossils found there. So what were oreodonts? Contrary to the name, they have nothing to do with Oreo cookies. Oreodont means mountain tooth in Greek, in reference to how these mostly teeth and jaw fossils have come from the mountains out west. The details of their teeth and skeleton demonstrate that they're members of Artiodactyla, or even-toed hoof mammals, but where do they fit within that group? The crests on their cheek teeth suggest they might be related to ruminants, or possibly camels, but they have extremely primitive features of the skull and skeleton that are similar to those found in pigs. There is still no consensus as to their nearest living relatives. The common Badlands oreodont is about sheep-sized, but looks like no mammal alive today. Whenever I give a talk mentioning them, I just show a picture of them and say, these are oreodonts. They have no close living relatives. Get used to it. Oreodonts are by far the most common mammal fossils, not only in beds dated between 37 and 30 million years ago in the Badlands, but they're also the most common mammal fossils found in North America between 40 million years ago and about 15 million years ago. There are huge collections of them in many museums, especially the American Museum of Natural History in New York, which has thousands of them. They are not only common and easily collected, but they evolved into a wide variety of different-looking forms, which means that paleontologists have long used the changes in oreodonts to date the beds from which the fossils come. Naturally, since they are common and easily collected, there have been lots of published studies on oreodonts and a tendency to give new names to every slightly different fossil as was found, till the oreodonts are burdened with hundreds of different names. The founders of American vertebrate paleontology, such as Leidy, Cope, and Marsh, named dozens of them, and later scientists continued the trend. But the over-splitting into dozens of genera and species based on trivial differences that don't reflect natural variability of biological populations culminated with the work of C. Bertrand Schultz of the University of Nebraska and Charlie Falkenbach of the Frick Laboratory in Paleontology. In a series of 8 monographs published between 1940 and 1968, Schultz and Falkenbach recognized almost 40 genera and 170 species. Many of these so-called species are just minor variations of the same populations. Some are due to crushing and distortion that Schultz and Falkenbach failed to recognize. For example, an uncrushed skull in one lineage was called Miniochirus. If it was crushed top to bottom, it was Platyochirus, or flat pig in Greek, while if it was crushed side to side, it was Synopsochirus, or narrow pig in Greek. It was well known by insiders in vertebrate paleontology that the work of Schultz and Falkenbach was incompetent and unreliable, and that warning was passed by word of mouth from advisor to student for generations. But no one took on the monumental task of cleaning up their mess. In the 1970s, Margaret Stevens of Beaumont University in Texas began a thoroughly modern review of the group, all of which was published in 1996, 2022, and 2023, just after she passed away in 2022 at the age of 90. The oldest oreodonts come from beds around 45 million years old in age, from all over the western U.S. and Canada, and are known as proto-oreodont. They were primitive in every respect, with a relatively simple cheek teeth, long tails, and were only about the size of a beagle. One family of oreodonts is known as the Agrochiridae, includes not only Protoreodon but also their goat-sized Agrocurus, a much larger animal with a really long tail and claws instead of hooves, but otherwise primitive skulls and teeth. They are often reconstructed as climbing branches. There's no clear evidence of that. It's just a trope that illustrators have copycatted for over a century. Agrocurus are rare, but they're found in the Badlands and even in John Day beds in Oregon and last until about 20 million years ago, then they vanish. In the family Mericoidodontidae, the next subfamily is Leptechinias. Schultz and Fackelbach split them into 7 genera and 21 species. When my former student, Francisco Sanchez, and I reanalyzed them, we recognized only 2 genera and 5 species. The most common fossil in the Badlands deposits from about 32 to 30 million years ago is the weird-looking Leptechinia decora. It's about the size of a large cat with a strange skull with extremely high-crowned teeth and eyes and ears high on the top of its head and strange openings around the nasal bones. Some have argued they were aquatic and their eyes and ears helped them swim underwater. Others have argued that Leptechinias were mostly adapted to dry conditions, which is consistent with the fact that they are recovered from ancient sand dune deposits, and they have very high crowned teeth for eating gritty vegetation. An even weirder leptechinid is Sespia, found in beds from 32 to 27 million years old in California and Nebraska. It was smaller than Leptechinia decora, with even higher ear openings. Meanwhile, the main line of evolution of oreodonts runs from Oreonides, Limnonides, and Bathygenes, from beds around 34 to 37 million years old, to the famous Mericoidodon culbertsoni, the most common oreodont of all, and the dominant fossil from 34 to 30 million years ago, which eventually got much larger around 31 million years ago, where it became Mericoidodon major. The subfamily Mericoidodontinae gave rise to 8 other subfamilies, which diversified and explored many other ecological niches between 30 million years ago and about 7 million years ago. One lineage, the Eporeodontinae, remained fairly primitive, with simple, unspecialized skulls and teeth and a long tail. They are the most common oreodonts in the John Day beds of Central Oregon, dating between 30 and 20 million years ago. Another subfamily was the Mericaiinae, typified by Mericaius. It had a relatively long limb and delicate build for an oreodont, and was about the size of a goat, and probably the fastest running of any members of the family. Although these lineages were a major part of the early Miocene fauna around 18 to 21 million years ago in North America, as typified by Agate Springs fossil beds in western Nebraska, when oreodonts reached their maximum diversity. Another lineage found in both the upper John Day beds and also near agate fossil beds is Promericaceae. They're typified by Promericaceus, which had a rather pig-like build with short legs, long barrel-shaped body, and a face with huge flaring cheekbones. In one locality in Nebraska, 3 complete Promericaceus skeletons are found together in their death poses, apparently suffocated by sand during a landslide. Even more extreme were the Mericoceae, which are the earliest oreodonts to show retracted nasal bones and enlarged nasal notches, indicative of having a short trunk or proboscis on their noses. An entirely different and independently evolved occurrence of a nasal notch retraction occurs in the oreodont Brachycrus. Its notch is so extreme that it must have supported a sizable trunk. All of these lineages of oreodonts vanished from North America around 15 million years ago. Only one genus survived, and then persisted for the next 8 million years. Known as Eustatocurus, it was about sheep size, and its skull and skeleton was not nearly as peculiar or specialized as many other oreodonts that preceded it. It showed a steady increase in size from about 18 million years ago until its last species, Eustatocurus californicus, evolved around 10 million years ago. Not only did Eustatocurus get larger, but it was beginning to develop teeth with deeper roots and higher crowns. And in beds dated around 7 million years ago in the Red Rock Canyon area of California, we find the very last Eustatocurus. When Eustatocurus vanished, the 40-million-year-long history of oreodonts came to an end. Why they disappeared is still a mystery, especially given their long history of success despite many climate changes over the 40 million years. The geochemical evidence of soils and tooth enamel showed that modern grasslands expanded dramatically around the globe around 7 million years ago, so it's possible that oreodonts could not adapt to the prevalence of gritty grasses and the loss of bushes and shrubs, which did not prevent horses or camels or pronghorns from becoming very successful by eating such fodder. Whatever the cause, oreodonts vanished for the last time, and they left behind many mysteries. What they're related to, what they looked like, what they ate, and why they didn't survive after such a long and successful history.